I'm super excited, everyone, to introduce another one of my most favorite human beings in Dubai and on the planet. Introducing Dave Catudal, co-founder of Forus, a health practitioner, supplement formulator, and cancer survivor, sharing 2 decades of insights into optimizing health and performance. Can I get a round of applause for beautiful Dave Catudal? Woo!
Thank you. All right, hello everyone. My name is Dave Catudal. I'm the co-founder of Forus. And I'm going to tell you about Forus in a moment. It's a supplement brand that focuses on recovery and longevity. But before I get into that, I want to just give you a little backstory about my journey to biohacking and how I had to learn a lot of different techniques to solve health problems that ran in my family. So when I was 10 years old and my little brother was diagnosed with leukemia. So he was 4 years old. I was 10, he was 4. And he fought leukemia for 6 years. And that was rough, you know, like as a 10-year-old myself watching my little brother be sick. Now, it taught me a very valuable lesson later. I got to learn the hard way that we store trauma that we don't even realize we have in the body that manifests as illness. We'll get back to that. So my brother, thank goodness, was cured at age 10. He's now a celebrity trainer. He took over my celebrity training business in LA, and he's crushing it. He's incredible. He's an inspiration. But 3 years after he was cured, my father, who was the healthiest man I've ever met in my life, never smoked, never drank in his life, took his lunch hours and trained. He was built like a Spartan warrior. He was diagnosed with adenocarcinoma, which is non-smoking lung cancer, spread to the brain. He died within a year. I was 17. He was 46. 6 years later, I get testicular cancer. So every man in my family got cancer. Now, when I was 20, so I got testicular cancer at 23. You know, I'm not about to say a bad word. When I was a teenager, I was not a healthy teenager. I was a teenager doing all the bad things. And I had ADHD really bad. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, I was like 15 ADHD. The medication you're supposed to put in your mouth, I put in my nose. Like that type of ADHD, right? So like it was a whole other level, right? So I get cancer at 23, and I was like, it was obvious to me, you know, because I was such a bad teen. I was unhealthy. I watched my healthy little brother get sick. I watched my healthy father get sick. So when I got sick, I was like, this is obvious. But the good news is when I had cancer, I had already been a personal trainer and nutritionist for 6 years. So when my father passed away when I was 17, I became a personal trainer right away. Like the gym for me was where I found my strength. I found my power. I found that I can take control of my health. And this put me on the path to supplement formulation because when I was sick, I declined chemo and radiation. So I said, no, that's not for me. Now, not that that was such a brilliant, strong, cool thing to do, is I actually realized I was really afraid to look sick because I had testicular cancer. And I don't know if anyone knows, when you have testicular cancer, if you're going to get one, that's the one to get. It's an easy one, right? You get surgery and then it's done. So all this to say is, I knew at that time, so by the way, my body doesn't produce testosterone. So I had to start testosterone at age 23. I don't know if anyone here, who here is on HRT? Anyone? All right, cool. Any men on HRT? No? Who here is taking peptides? Not as many hands as I thought. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about peptides as well. So where I'm going with that is my journey to optimization came through having to solve my own health problems because at 23 years old, when you have to start taking testosterone, it's like a whole weird world because you start having, you know, excessive hormones and then you have to balance your estrogen and then you have to balance your cortisol, then you have to balance your insulin, then you have to balance. It became a crazy balancing game. So I became very obsessed with the healing power of nature, and so I became obsessed with putting together supplements that can balance all these things so I didn't have to take all these different drugs. So that brought me to a path of peptides as well. So, and of course, like all of our journeys, when we start something, when we start doing something, the first thing we usually do is research or find someone who's really, really good at something and getting, an opinion from them. I wasn't so smart when I was 24, and I started doing peptides just by like researching on bodybuilding forums. And so I started peptides like all the wrong way. So learn from my mistakes, because fast forward now, I'm 44 years old. I feel better than I felt in my 30s. I feel like my aging has slowed down instead of accelerated. And I think that I've finally put together a protocol that really works for me, and I think that can work for a lot of people as well. So to be honest, I was very surprised that so few people put up their hands when I was talking about peptides. So can I just see one more time? Who here is currently taking peptides? All right, that's a little bit more hands. That's good. Okay. Now, who here is curious about peptides? All right. Okay, so that's why you're here. Okay, that's why you're here. All right. So look, I'm not a doctor. I don't claim to be a doctor. I don't even consider myself an expert in peptides for the sole reason that the science of peptides is evolving so quickly that every week there's something new coming out, and it's very hard to be an expert in that field. What I am an expert in is solving problems for myself and other people, and how certain peptides can be extremely effective for a broad amount of people. So fast forward to where we are today with my supplement company, Force. Who here has heard of BPC 157? Cool. All right. So a lot of people have heard of it. So does anyone have a question? Sorry, I thought I just heard a question. I thought someone had a question. Sorry. So by the way, I will open this up to Q&A after, and please ask me anything. Can't promise I can answer it, but ask me absolutely anything. I'm a completely open book. So BPC 157. BPC 157 is a peptide that I believe the most amount of people, broadly, will benefit from. Now, BPC stands for body protective compound. That's a fancy name that scientists have given it when they first discovered it. I believe it was the early 90s that this scientists discovered this BPC. And they discovered it in our gastric system. So it was in our stomach, in our gastric juice. Now, what this BPC compound, this peptide, does so well is it modulates inflammation through the system, and it heals damage to soft tissue through a pathway of increasing what's called angiogenesis. So it essentially increases blood flow to anywhere that you have damage. So imagine you have damage in a joint, in your ankle, in your elbow, in your shoulder, in your hip, wherever. By supplementing BPC 157, whether that's injection or whether that's a capsule, you're essentially giving your system more signals to heal areas that are damaged. Now, going into a different angle of BPC, and this is the reason why it's so special for me and why I think the broadest amount of people need this is, well, I'll back up one sec to my journey to Thailand. So I lived in Thailand for 6 years. I worked at a detox resort where we did water fasting and when we did detoxes, and a lot of times parasites came up. This is kind of gross, but who here has been diagnosed? Who here knows they had a parasite at one point in their life? Cool. Oh, okay. Tom lived in China, so we yes. Anyone who lives in Asia, like we have, that's a very real possibility. Who here has heard of H. pylori? Good. Okay, this is a big one, H. pylori. So parasites, H. pylori. These are things that damage our gut, and most of the time we don't even really know it, or we can't quantify it. We can't tell how damaged our gut is. We might feel something's off in my gut. I feel I'm getting constipated a lot, or I'm just having like aches every time I'm digesting. And the first thing we think about is probiotics, right? Oh, my gut is off, I need probiotics. What we don't usually think about is the physical damage to the gut that we might have. And this is something that most people are suffering from. When we have a lot of gut damage, we have a lot of inflammation. When we have a lot of inflammation, we have a lot of signals throughout our system that are just going a little bit chaotic. So BPC 157, what is so remarkable about this is it heals gut tissue in the mucosal lining. So imagine years of parasite damage you might not even know you had, or H. pylori damage that you might not even know you had this bacteria. Imagine all that damage causing rampant inflammation that we think is causing issues that are mystery issues. What it actually is a damaged gut. So BPC 157, one of the first things that it does is that it addresses this gut damage and it goes straight to the source and starts to repair. And that's a really, really profound thing. So this is one of the reasons why I find BPC 157, like if we're all in, whoever raised their hand, whoever's interested in peptides, great. But be warned that there are hundreds of different peptides. And one friend might be recommending one thing and someone else might be recommending another, and there's so many things we could be taking. My recommendation is if you're going to start into the world of peptides, start with BPC 157. Start with that, because it's the least amount of side effects possible. It's the broadest beneficial for all of us in this modern day, and it could be solving a problem that you didn't even know you had. So that's a big one. So a lot of people will get better, which is a broad topic, but they'll get better, and they don't know what is getting better, but what it is you no longer are fighting all this inflammation. And that started in the gut. So highly recommended BPC 157. The other thing that is, well, actually I'm going to open it up. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Any questions? Yes. I'm glad you started with that one. So GLP-1, who here has heard the term GLP-1? Okay. That is kind of what got peptides famous, to be honest. When we think about peptides, GLP-1. So GLP-1 is essentially it's classified as a fat loss peptide, right? So it works on either the glucose pathway or the glucagon pathway. Ozempic, Mounjaro, the fat loss peptides, this is what, I believe this is what got peptides so famous so quick, is because, damn, they work. Who here has taken it? Who here has taken a GLP-1? All right, I have also taken a GLP-1, by the way, and I didn't take it for weight loss. I took it for other benefits that it might have. However, I wouldn't say that GLP-1 is gut protective in any way. In fact, they can cause gut damage. So I would steer people away from starting with that unless they know that, okay, well, fat loss is my goal, pure and simple. Yeah. Anything else? Yes. That's a really, really great question. So H. pylori is a pain. It sucks. And by the way, I think, and this is not an updated statistic, back when I was working in Thailand and like parasites and H. pylori were a daily thing for me, there was a statistic like 75% of the adult population had it. Like 75%. Now the interesting thing is some people can live with H. pylori and it doesn't really, really affect them. Some people can have it and it absolutely wrecks them. The issue is, and if anyone has gone through this, Tom, you said you had it? Yeah. Did you have to do antibiotics to get rid of it? So, I'm not a huge fan of antibiotics unless you absolutely need them. The remedy for H. pylori is like sometimes months of antibiotics. That's a lot of antibiotics, right? Like 5 days is a lot of antibiotics. That changes the microbiome expression. Months of antibiotics, that fundamentally changes it's gut dysbiosis. So it's really, really tough. So to answer your question is like, first you have to know if you have it or not. That's the first thing. Test yourself. And by the way, anyone who hasn't been tested for H. pylori, test yourself. Find out. It's a breath test. It's not super invasive. It's very easy. But find out. Once you find out if you have it or not, then that's when you decide, how do I want to treat this? And by the way, if there's any medical doctors in this room, and because again, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm just a guy who has been doing this for a really long time, there may be some advances in treating H. pylori that I don't know about. But to answer your question more simply, if I found out that I had H. pylori today, I would just start taking BPC immediately, knowing that I had damage in my gut from this bacteria, and I wanted to reduce that damage as much as possible. Yeah. Are there any medical doctors in this room? Cool. Oh, of course, yes. Have you guys dealt with H. pylori? Any infectious disease? Yes? Okay. Do you still treat with antibiotics? 30 days minimum, consecutive. My stomach hurts just thinking about that. Yes. Do you have another solution? Love it. Love it. Peptides. Is there any peptides you use that can target H. pylori? BPC 157. I love it. Yeah, again, big fan, big fan. It has such broad uses. Yeah. Someone else had their hand up. Yes. Mastic gum for 2 to 3 months. Like, that's it? Mastic gum for 2 to 3 months? Yep. Mhm. See, I love this. I'm up here kind of teaching and I'm learning at the same time. This is the best part about the health industry is like I was downstairs exhibiting in my forest booth and I was speaking to some of the most brilliant doctors and I love this field because there's always such advances, right? Or there's always different ways to do things. But yes, in my opinion, when there's a bacterial issue, throwing an antibiotic at it, that's old school, right? That's a very traditional, outdated way of thinking of things. So I'm glad that there's people thinking differently. But again, I'm not here to scare anyone. Surprised no one's left yet, actually. But I would recommend just test. Just test. Find out if you have it. Because if it's in your system, it's probably disrupting something, and it's not something that will show up on a blood test, right? So yeah, glad we covered that topic. Any other questions? Yes. Yes, okay, so great question. So let's talk peptides. So currently, I'm taking about 6 different peptides. So again, I'm 44 years old. I feel better than I can remember feeling. It's not because I'm taking 6 different peptides, right? That's part of it. That's helped optimize. But you know, I got my sleep under control. I have my diet. My diet doesn't change for 20 years. My exercise is pretty rock solid. When it comes to, sorry, what was the question? I have ADHD, by the way. I didn't say. I was going to say, when I started this conversation, I'm like, someone's probably going to have to remind me what I was talking about. Sorry. Pills, exactly, yes. So I'm currently taking about 6 different peptides, and about the pill, only one of those peptides is effective at all as a capsule, and that's BPC-157. That being said, and I'll get to what peptides I'm taking in a second, because I'm sure people are interested. Most peptides are not bioavailable, or they'll be broken down by the digestion process, or they'll be broken down by the acidity in our stomach. BPC-157 was designed, it's in our stomach. We were born with BPC in our gastric juice. So that is pretty much the only peptide that I know of that is orally bioavailable without being like severely denatured. There are other peptides that you can take intranasally. So if there are those options, but again, not all of them. Most do have to be injected. So that is kind of where peptides go into this interesting category where it's not really for, I don't want to say beginners, but it's a lot different taking a pill or taking an injection, right? There's a steeper learning curve and more room for error. So back onto what I'm taking, and I'm not an expert in all peptides, but I've become an expert in my protocol, and I think it can help a lot of us. So as we age, our growth hormone declines, right? So there's different ages you'll hear, like after 35, after 40, but it's a fact that as we age, our growth hormone declines. Growth hormone is responsible for so many different things. One of the first things is recovery, right? The speed in which we recover. There's 2 compounds that I've had great success with, and I've seen over and over a lot of people benefit from, and pretty much nobody have a negative side effect. It's called ipamorelin and CJC1295. Anyone who's been in the peptide game knows those 2 compounds. They're very basic, but they're very effective. They're effective at a small dose, and there's almost no negative side effects. Who here has taken CJC or ipamorelin? Anyone? I know you have. You live with me. So these 2 compounds are very effective at increasing our natural growth hormone. Now, I'm not a fan of, I'll be honest, I wish I didn't have to take testosterone. I wish I could have saved that for when I was like 50, 55. I've optimized everything. I'm like, okay, now it's time. Now I want to be a jack grandpa or something, so I'll start taking testosterone. Because when you start taking something like testosterone or growth hormone directly, so if anyone here has been prescribed growth hormone, I would say question that. Maybe you can take something like ipamorelin and CJC. Those are very well-received peptides for the average population. They boost our growth hormone, which means that's by default increasing regeneration. That's very anti-aging. Some people could claim it's muscle building, but that's only if you're exercising sufficiently and diet is on point. Don't think of it as a muscle building thing. It can help, but it's not the first pathway to that. Think of it as just longevity optimization. So that's ipamorelin and CJC. The next one is, and I've been experimenting with this next one for not that long, but I've been very impressed with it. GHKCU. Anyone? GHKCU? Anyone else? GHKCU? All right, so GHKCU is a copper peptide. You might have heard of that term, copper peptide. So you can put that on. So this comes back to the capsule question. This can actually be applied topically. However, injectable provides more systemic benefit. So if you put it on your skin, you will find that it gives benefit to the skin quality. You will find that it even feels like there's a collagen synthesis effect, which there is. But by injecting it, you get much broader benefits. So I've found significant improvements in healing. I recently flew to Mexico to have, this is going to sound crazy, to have an experimental stem cell treatment. One of my main issues, physical issues, is I have a bad eye. I have glaucoma in one eye. Not the other. The other's fine. For some reason, my right eye, I have glaucoma, which is a degenerative disease, which means it gets worse and worse every year, but I felt it getting worse and worse every week. So I flew to Mexico to get this experimental stem cell treatment. I think it's a success so far, so good, not bad. But as soon as I got home, I started GHKCU. And I noticed that my healing, my speed of healing for anything, accelerated significantly. So I actually don't look at GHKCU as like a beauty peptide. I look at it as a healing peptide. It has both applications, but it's quite pronounced. I've found pretty instant benefits with that. So if anyone's interested, note that one down. It's pretty interesting. And then the other one, okay, so back into GLP-1s. I am taking a GLP. Technically it's a GLP-1, but it's a GLP-3. What does GLP-1 mean? So something that is working on our there's ghrelin and leptin. Has anyone heard of our hunger hormones? All right, so we have different hunger hormones. One of our hormones tells us when we're hungry. It gives us that like little signal saying like, you're hungry, man, like you gotta eat. The other one says, you're good, you're full. These are satiety, so these are the balance between our body sending us a brilliant signal that says, you're hungry, you need to eat, and then a signal saying, you're good, you can stop eating now. So these GLP-1s play on those pathways, and they basically send signals to your body saying, you're full. Even when you're kind of not physically full, you don't have an expanded stomach, you're full. It works brilliantly. You can be obsessed with food one day, then you take this GLP-1 and the next week you're looking at food and you're like, meh, I don't need it. Like that compulsion, that obsession, that drive is just not there. It works with other habits too. I've known people who've started taking GLP-1s and they quit smoking, like that. They just weren't interested. They didn't have that drive. They didn't have that need. They didn't have that craving. So that's interesting. That's where peptides start to go into a very interesting field. It's like, oh wow, that's actually changing my habit, but in a positive way. This is where it can be leveraged to do something quite beneficial in our body. So I'm taking this, a peptide GLP-1, technically GLP-3, called retatrutide. Who here has heard of retatrutide? All right. Retatrutide. Big fan. Again, I'm not here to tell, I'm not making prescriptions, all right? I'm just saying what I have found, and I'm also saying things that I've heard really, really solid feedback from others who have taken it. When most people take retatrutide, whether it's their first time taking one of these GLP-1s, or whether they've switched from one of the old school ones like Ozempic or Mounjaro, usually when they get onto retatrutide, they're like, oh wow, like this is serious. Like it cut my cravings like that, or it reduced my, my cravings and my obsession with food. That noise in your brain that tells you you're hungry, it just shut it down. I don't take it for that because I don't have that issue with food. I've worked through that in many, many years, but I have really bad blood sugar management because I've been taking testosterone for so long. My cortisol is very high. Because my cortisol is high, cortisol and blood sugar are inversely related. So by taking retatrutide, I can wake up 5:36 in the morning, I can have a breakfast, and I can go 10 hours without having any food and without having any dip in my blood sugar. It's ridiculous because it used to be, and I can go 2 hours without eating and I'd become a monster. Like if I didn't get food in 2 hours, like I turned into a different person. Like my blood sugar would dip, I would get dizzy, I would get frustrated. So it has completely changed the way that I can get through my work days, I can stay in the flow. So I'm using a GLP-1, not for weight loss, but for optimization of focus and energy. So it's very versatile. It's very interesting how that works. Does anyone have any questions at this point? What's that? No. So you cannot take retatrutide through a capsule. No. They're working on some of the older ones. Oh, is my time up? Sorry, my bad. Sorry, guys. All right. All right, guys. Well, my time's actually up. She's coming up here. All right. She's going to take my microphone. Okay, cool. I'm like, all right, we're good. All right, guys. Look, I have a community on WhatsApp that we talk about peptides, we talk about supplements, we talk about all this stuff. There's some of the most brilliant medical doctors on that chat who are going to give you even better information than I can, because mine is just experiential information. Some people can give you actually clinical information. So if you want, find me somehow, and I don't have a presentation, and I can add you to that chat. Yeah. All right, guys, time's up. Gotta go. Thank you.